their game on Sunday in Arizona. Once again, the final score, Vegas 5 and the Penguins 2. This is Paul Steigerwald for the Penguins Radio Network.
And that game against the Coyotes comes up on Sunday night, 6:30 airtime, 7 o'clock puck drop here on Beaver County Radio. Last night in college basketball action, Geneva ends their skid at 3 games as they win last night over Washington and Jefferson on the road. Final score 77-67. In the game, the GTs were led by Ryan Rashik with 20. Isaac Massey had 17. Jonathan Pertovich had 10. And Trevor Tipton had 11. For the Presidents, it was Kyra Mitchell and Brandon Jakila, each with 18 points. Only other player in double digits for them was Michael Bigley with 12. Both teams, with Geneva's win and the W&J loss, are now 9-4 overall and 6-2 in the PAC. Again, the final, Geneva 77, W&J 67. Also in college basketball last night, led by Dwayne Cohill's 23 points, the Youngstown State Penguins defeated Robert Morris by a score of 78-56. The Penguins moved to 11-5 with the victory, and the Colonials fell to 7-9. Also last night, Pitt fell to Syracuse by a score of 89-71. And with the loss, Pitt now drops to 7-8 on the season. Syracuse improves to 11-4. Last night in high school girls basketball, it was South Fayette defeating Lincoln Park in Section 4 of 5A action by a score of 53-39, and Moon lost to Trinity by a score of 49-27. In Section 2 of 4A, it was Blackhawk 58, Hopewell 19, and Quaker Valley edges out Beaver 47-41. In Section 2 of 3A, it was Avonworth 50, Our Lady of Sacred Heart 43. 33. Aliquippa knocks off Swickley Academy 46-36. And Shenango takes care of New Girls action. It was Beaver County Christian 38, Propel Braddock Hills 9. Tonight on Beaver County Radio, boys basketball action as Blackhawk travels to Beaver. And we'll have all the coverage for you. 7 o'clock will be airtime, 7:30 tip-off from Beaver tonight between the Radio. In other boys basketball action tonight, in Section 1 of 1A, Rochester travels to Avella, and Cornell will host Union. In Section 1 of 2A, Southside Beaver travels to Laurel. Aliquippa will host Swickley Academy. In Section 1 of 3A, Beaver Falls hosts Mohawk. Freedom is at Elwood City. Riverside will entertain Neshannock. In Section 2 of 3A, Olsh will be at home against Steel Valley. In Section 4 of 4A, West Mifflin is at Quaker Valley. In Section 4 of 5A, North Hills is at Moon. And in non-conference boys basketball tonight, Ambridge will host Central Valley. All games tonight are at 7:30. And after the coverage of Blackhawk and Beaver is done, it'll be the first edition of the Falcones Moon Township Ford Wrap-Up Show following the game here on Beaver County Radio. That's a look at sports. Time to go back to Live Mike with Mike Romigh here on Beaver County Radio.
Welcome to Live Mike with Mike Romigh, presented by Heritage Valley Health System, the show that talks about what's happening in Beaver County, along with news and weather with Curtis Walsh and sports with Matt Durzick. And now, here is the host of the show, Mike Romigh.
Well, thanks for tuning in. We have some information here that I think you're going to be interested in. We congratulate the new members of the committee of the Beaver County Republican Committee, and joining us now is Chairman Roman Kozak. Good morning, Roman, and congratulations. You're on number 3. I have to push up number 3.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming in. And Jim Cristiano was the chairman of the Beaver County Republican Committee. And were you under him? Were you like the vice chair at that time?
No, I was actually helping run some subcommittee work for the committee. But interestingly enough, my start in politics in Beaver County was with Jim Cristiano. He hired me as a staffer back 10 years ago when he was a state representative. So,
and now he's doing his own thing. He's got his own business. And
yeah, he's very successful in his own business, and he's helped rebuild and restructure some of the county committee itself. And I'm fortunate enough to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, and so you are the chair. Rico Elmore is the vice chair. Fabiola Gergerich is the secretary, and Chris Tribe?
Chris Tribe, yeah.
Chris Tribe is the treasurer. So how do you become the committee chair?
So every 2 years there is a organizational meeting, and in that organizational meeting there's a nomination and a voting process amongst the committee members. So that happened this past Wednesday night, and I was voted in as the chairman.
Do you want to be Speaker of the House?
Uh,
Because they're having a hard time electing somebody for that position.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get nominated after the 15th or 100th round. I'm not sure.
Did you want to be chairman of the Republican Committee, Beaver County?
I did. Yeah, I didn't think so maybe a year ago, but things have sort of worked out in life and my involvement in politics that this seemed like the right opportunity at the right time to really help continue to advance our mission to get Republicans elected here in Beaver County. So I did get asked by a few people to do so, and I put my name out there and was voted in.
Well, it seems as though if you take a glance down the elected officials in Beaver County, the Republicans have been doing extremely well over the past 10 years.
Yes, Beaver County has had a significant transition in the last 10 years. Actually, a decade ago, Democrats in Beaver County had a 15,000 voter registration advantage. So 50,000 more people were registered as Democrats. As of December 27th, the latest report from the state, the advantage for the Democratic Party in Beaver County is only now around 1,700. Mm-hmm. So that gap has closed significantly. In this past year, over 1,000 Democrats in Beaver County have switched to become Republicans.
Yeah, and what do you think the reason for that is? What's going on in our society here in Beaver County that's causing that shift?
Beaver County is a unique microcosm, I think, of America, of the heartland of America. And we have had a lot of people think that it's just been more recent. But if you go back to the first McCain and Obama election in 2008, McCain actually won Beaver County. And that's when we started seeing the transition begin to occur with a lot of voting at the federal level, especially. And around that same time is when we started seeing the state representative seats flipping here in Beaver County. I think it's a matter of the Democratic Party moving in a direction that embraces a more progressive and urban sort of mindset that we see across the cities in the country that is just simply not Beaver County. Beaver County at its heart is a conservative-hearted county, a hardworking blue-collar, and in the past, the Democrats held a significant advantage primarily because of the union support. But I do see that on the ground changing significantly, even amongst union membership. And it's something that I think as a Republican Party, we need to embrace and recognize that the Democratic Party is not the party of our mom and dads and our grandparents any longer, the ones that my grandparents voted for. So that change, I think, is coming in the shift in policy that we're seeing that more conservative mind has been lost almost entirely in the Democratic Party.
In terms of appealing to a broader base, what do you hope to bring to the position? What are you reaching out to as far as all voting members of Beaver County to say, yeah, the Republican Party is where you should be?
Well, there's a lot that can go into that. I think one of the major things we need to begin doing as a party here and as a committee in the county is connecting with younger folks, connecting with younger people, and getting them engaged and helping them recognize why the conservative movement is extremely important to them and why it's most beneficial to them in their future and their family's future. Engaging, of course, minority groups and other groups that don't typically vote Republican is going to be a top priority for us, especially with my vice chairman, Rico Elmore, who I'm sure you guys have had on before. He has a lot of initiatives and ideas about reaching out to groups that aren't typically sought after by Republicans. So we have a lot of things cooking right now. This transition is taking place, and it's going to take some months and times, but we want to make the committee here in Beaver County a significant part of the political process and helping Republicans and our ideas get put in place.
Is that something that you have to be very careful of to try and bring other people into the umbrella? Because the Democrats for many years have proudly stated that they have a large umbrella. They take in the LGBT community, the minority community, the women's rights, the abortion. So in terms of, as the Democrats were losing voters over this course of time, and as you say, the blue-collar workers, the union members, thinking that the Democratic Party no longer is no longer representative of their beliefs. So as the Republican Party tries to garner more votes, even here in Beaver County, do you have to tread that lightly to say that, well, yeah, but we don't want to push forward minority voters, minority issues, LGBT, we support it, but we don't want to make a big deal out of it the way the Democrats did, because that's what lost the Democrats' votes.
I think that one of the things people are most frustrated about is the identity politics that's being used in play, and actually segmenting Americans and our fellow neighbors into certain categories. We're a lot more complex than that, and I think these recent elections have shown how complex we are. People don't like to be simply identified in a particular group. So treading lightly, not so much. I think we need to speak the truth in the message, and we need to be clear and stand on our convictions about the things we care so much about as Republicans. Limited government principles, understanding why significant taxation hurts industry and hurts families and hurts businesses, and our small businesses especially. Being pro-life and pro-Second Amendment. Pro-life is more than just the care for those that are unborn. It's a messaging that we need to recognize that with economics and with policy, pro-life is about the expansion of business and the upkeep of family-sustaining jobs in our area. So that messaging needs to be clear. We need to be convicted in it, and we need to not be bold and not afraid to talk about those issues.
When you talk about pro-life, it's the abortion issue.
Yeah.
It's the women's right. It's Roe versus Wade. And as we saw in the last election, that a lot of women said, no, your policies in the Republican Party are too extreme. We want to have that constitutional right to choose what we do with our bodies. And, identity politics are all politics. Minorities have a certain amount of things that they want done. They want to see representation. They want these things accomplished that maybe they haven't from the Democrats. Maybe the Democrats have just given them lip service about it over the years. LGBT community were concerned after the Roe versus Wade decision that perhaps the next step from the Supreme Court was going to be to take away their right to get married. And so those have to come into play, because maybe you disagree, but it seems as though they cost the Republicans votes in last November's election.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that each of those is different topics, and of course there was going to be some transition there, especially with the messaging. I think as a party, speaking as a Republican myself, I think we had a really poor job on messaging in this past election, particularly on those topics you talked about. I don't think necessarily that, especially in the pro-life issue, that we suddenly that Americans are less pro-life. I believe there's more, generally speaking, pro-life Americans than there are what one might call pro-choice. But the messaging about it was, for the Republicans, was to avoid it, to not talk about it, to not be bold and stand on the convictions, and be clear and open about what needed to be done and what didn't need to be done. And that scared a lot of people, I do believe, into thinking that if a Republican gets in charge, that everything's just going to disappear and there's going to be some sort of dictatorial mandate against all forms of whatever type of care that a woman might receive. So there was messaging problems, and I do think the Republicans need to work on that, but we still need to be bold and stand up for the truth and the pro-life message. Josh
Kale, Jim Marshall, Aaron Bernstein, they have been successful. 2 out of the 3 of them continue to represent people in Beaver County. How come Rob Matzy continues to do well down there in Ambridge? And I know you've, Rico Elmore, for example, you've put candidates up against him. What's Rob doing differently that is still keeping his constituents and the Democrats voting for him year after year?
Well, I do. I don't know Rob myself personally. I do know that historically his voting record has been less progressive, less liberal than many members that might be considering themselves more progressive. But he is now, because of redistricting and his location in the district, I think it's the registration advantage is just so heavy there in that southeast corner of Beaver County with the communities that he has, that it's really difficult for a Republican to overcome. I do think we can win that. The messaging is going to continue to help us win more seats. And that particular district, I do not believe is completely left to Democratic control. I do think that in the future we can win there, but we're going to have to keep up our messaging and keep expanding the party here in the county.
We're talking with Roman Kozak. He's the chairman of the Beaver County Republican Party, just installed in that position. How long do those positions run?
It's a 2-year term.
2-year term.
Yeah.
Rico Elmore is the vice chair. Fabiola Gergerich is the secretary, and Chris Tribe is the treasurer of the party. Explain to us the committee's responsibility and roles, because I mentioned the Republican legislature. If you look at the row offices in Beaver County, plenty of Republicans there. Do they come to you and say, we've got to get this agenda out there, we've got to rally these people for these particular issues, or is it you and the county party that goes to them and says, hey, this is what we need to get accomplished here?
Well, over the years, the committee has transformed and changed and transitioned in different ways. So under different leadership, there has been different messaging and different roles played as for the committee itself. The ultimate goal in the committee and our bylaws and our objective and our mission is to get Republicans elected, particularly as it relates to Beaver County. So the party is an apparatus of its own. We are a committee within the county that functions in a way that tries to get that goal of accomplishing Republicans being elected. So going forward in the future, as myself as chair, there's a lot to have the discussions, but we want to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to continue to help those Republicans and support those Republicans in their elections and in their messaging, and to be a support structure to help them so that they can focus on the things that they need to focus on while we're in the background there helping support them in whatever way they need.
Mm-hmm. We often hear the sound of financial conservatives, concerned about their finances, the future, the taxes, taxation, and all that other stuff that goes along. When you're looking to appeal to people in Beaver County, what can you offer them?
It relates to
taxes, finances, conservative principles.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on which level of government we're going to be talking about. As a county committee, we want to help, of course, with the bigger elections across the country, whether that be, of course, a presidential election or statewide election, but really focusing on our county elections here, our county officials, our state representatives, our state senators, and even the local school boards and local councils. That's one area where we do want to expand, especially
school boards
and councils, because those are the areas that people are recognizing over the past few years that the government that's really most important to them is the one that's closest to home because of the issues that have been raised with school boards, especially as it's been a national news story. So focusing on those areas, school boards, focusing on councils, whether they be borough or city councils, we wanted to find and recruit candidates that are willing to step up and offer those conservative principles to Beaver Countyans and help them to recognize that they are in control of their taxes and they're in control of their school board, and that this isn't a bureaucratic system that these people just get to pick and choose what's best for their kids and their families. That we want representation that's actually representative of the communities that they are living in. So I think right now there's still a balance that's leaning Democratic just historically because of the nature of things. But I know many Democratic councilmen in our county that will tell me straight up that they vote Republican, but they always registered Democrat because that was the only way they could.
Mm-hmm. And what's going on in the school districts that is alarming to you?
Well, to me, it depends on the area. School districts in general, parents are just recognizing now, I think, after what they're seeing nationally or what they saw nationally, that they want to be more involved and more in tune with exactly what's being taught in the classroom and what's being communicated to their children. I have spoken just in the past 24 hours to two separate moms in the area that are both starting parent concern groups. And they have issues ranging from, social issues that are being taught in schools to economics to civil things to, whether or not their children are being being taught about government. So those things are all very important to the parents who have kids in our communities. So
critical race theory. Let's just bring it right out there because it sounds like we're dancing around it.
That's one of the things
when we're talking about the local school districts. Yeah. Is critical race theory being taught in Beaver County?
I honestly can't say that I have any personal examples of that. That is the bigger boogeyman in the national conversation. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt in my mind that the implications of this sort of philosophy and thinking creep into certain curriculums because personally, I've seen those sorts of things offshoot directly. There may be some teachers teaching that, but I personally cannot confirm any examples in Beaver County. Maybe there's some people out there that have seen it themselves that are concerned about it or concerned about it making its way into the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other things? Because there's got to be like a red flag somewhere that conservatives are concerned about.
Well, when I talk to the parents, especially those locally involved in school boards, it's a lot about the messaging about this country, about America, about what they learned growing up in the schools versus what they believe that their children are learning about now. I do think there's a national conversation that's going on that is creating an environment that's conflictual that might not be in most of our school districts, especially in maybe more rural areas. But the closer you get to the cities, the closer you get to the more urban areas, there's some school district issues that, of course, that are arising. We see examples popping up all the time on social media and in the news outlets about about those topics that are, I guess you could say, taboo to a lot.
I suppose that would be a delicate walk again.
Yeah.
Because if you're dealing with slavery and the history of our founding fathers and, all that sort of thing, what should be taught as opposed to, what is fact and what is fiction? And have they been taught fiction all these years? And now is it time to put forward another line of thinking? Is this something? How close do we get to censorship whenever we're trying to deal with this and make that balance work out for everyone?
Well, it's a matter of worldview and people's individual worldviews. And the reality is that we have conflictual worldviews, in this country, especially those are growing, I think, between right and left politically. So the discussion around these topics is delicate, but we always need to make sure that we're going back to the primary sources, the things that are most reflective of the true and actual history that has been taught. And of course, yes, we've made mistakes in our teaching, but there is an ideology out there that starts with, I'm not going to get too deep into things. I'm a little bit of a philosophy or a history geek myself, but there's a philosophy that goes back to the Enlightenment period, and it transfers over into the 1800s and German Romanticism and Marxism that eventually leads to a certain type of thinking that pits us against one another. It's a class warfare, identity politic obsession that views the world as these tribal competing groups of oppressor and oppressed, and is looking to constantly bring about some sort of transition through a synthesis. And it's a lot there that goes into it, but there is a disturbing worldview behind it that I think is frankly just wrong.
Very good. Oh, there's so much that we could talk about.
I know
and I would love to invite you back again sometime as we talk about these things and they unfold. But congratulations to you and your committee, Roman Kozak, and your committee, the Republican Committee of Beaver County. Thank you for coming on and talking with us today.
Thank you, Mike.
The Live Mike presented by Heritage Valley Health System.
Navigating healthcare can be overwhelming. Heritage Valley is changing that perspective. Our medical neighborhoods provide the personal care you need right where you live and work. Access specialty physicians, lab and diagnostic imaging, rehab, and more in the heart of your community. With 7 convenient locations, we have a medical neighborhood in yours. Heritage Valley, uniquely connected for life.
All right, that's it. We made it through the first week. I don't know if they'll invite me back again next week or not, but I'm on the schedule, so we'll work it out that way. Eddie Crow and Teleform coming up after the news at the top of the hour. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Well, the government's final jobs report for 2022 is just in, and it shows that private sector employers grew their payrolls by 223,000 jobs last month. It was about 23